Welcome to Next to Madison, a podcast to help you live your best life.
Welcome back to another fun episode of Next to Madison. I am your host, Madison Malloy, and on today's episode, I am sitting down with relationship expert Megan Weks. She is the founder of the Manfunnel, which is helping highly successful women and now men find their soulmate and get married in under a year. And we dive into that exact process. And yes, it has a lot to do with your mindset and a lot of the stuff that I teach and talk about, which is law of attraction, the scarcity versus the abundant mindset. Also, effective communication. It is not just for your work and for your personal relationships, it is for your romantic relationships. How to express what you need and how to focus on what she calls not Mr. Now, but Mr. Next. So you will not want to miss this amazing episode. We'll be right back after this brief message on Next to Madison.
It's your host, Madison Malloy, and I have exciting news. My new product is now available on Amazon called Color Your Way to Abundance, a 21-day manifestation guide for wealth, health, and love. This unique coloring journal will help you manifest by coloring in the affirmations while you continue to repeat them. This will help activate these affirmations so they become a reality. Grab your copy today and relax, color, and start manifesting.
We are back with our amazing guest. I'm so excited for this episode. Dating conversations, relationships are always so fun. And I've got with me the founder of the Manfunnel with us today. She is an author, a speaker, obviously a relationship expert, and a coach. I'd like to welcome to the show our guest on this episode of Next to Madison, Megan Weks. How are you?
Hey, I'm so well. Thanks so much for having me. Love the show, and I'm just thrilled to be here and share the tricks of the trade, the tricks of the Manfunnel, and how it works.
No, I'm so excited about this because I heard about this through a mutual friend of ours, and I was just so blown away. And I was like, what? How did she do this? So before we get into all the juicy stuff, I want you to, I need your backstory. How the heck did you get into creating this?
Sure. Well, I was dating in Manhattan for like 16 years, pounding those pavements, looking for love, Madison, and having a lot of fun along the way, working hard in my career. And at some point, I realized that there was something that I must not have been doing right, because I could attract men, but the longevity of my relationships just wasn't there. Like anyone that I really loved and like wanted to be with would end the relationship with me. And I mean, like, I don't think, before a year. So that was like my MO. I remember they would start slipping away around 7 months and that, pull back. Or then I had the boyfriend who just pretended we were still in a relationship, wouldn't break up with me. That was really fun. I had my menagerie like in his apartment. I still had my apartment on upper east side, but so I had all my trials and tribulations. So I took a long look in the mirror at some point and was like, oh, maybe I should dig into this and see what my contribution is, right?
Yeah.
And when I did that, well, I didn't realize that there was just so much information that could support me in dating and relationships. Like if you're struggling out there, just like get to the studying, get to learning, because it opened up a whole world for me. And I realized I was doing everything backward. I was showing up in ways that like I was attracted to in men, right? Versus that actually worked with like a divine masculine or healthy masculine man. And fast forward then, handful of years later, after I started, I was learning and I was on my journey and I was finally having reciprocal relationships. But it came to the point where I knew I wanted to meet somebody, and I had decided, this really is the year I'd like to meet somebody. I started dating like a well-oiled machine and very specific intentions and ways, okay, and putting all the tools I had learned. And it worked. I met Josh and married him within the same year that I intended on doing so. So now the Manfunnel method, and I was married in 2014. And since then, so I practiced, I ended up getting, I have a few coaching certificates. I ended up getting a a coaching certificate in dating and relationships. And Madison, I was just practicing on a few women that I asked. I'm like, can I coach you for free? Like, I was all shaky and scared, and I didn't think this could be a career, you know. I didn't know what would come of this kind of coaching school, but the 3 out of 3 of the women, and these women, like, I shit you not, one hadn't had a relationship for a decade, like no boyfriend. Like she had no boyfriend and she was cute and great career, like normal. Okay. The other one really was having wasn't really getting past third dates for like years, 7-ish years or something.
Oh my gosh.
And then the other one, just, yeah, no relationship really to speak of. So, I was just a very green fledgling coach in school, and I just kind of walked them through my process. And there is some magic that we tap into, from the, like, metaphysical type of magic too, and we did a little bit of that.
Yeah.
And they all, like, bang bang bang, they all met someone within 3 months.
Oh my God. And they're all married?
They all got married. They all got married.
Okay, so all right. So
And
let's
then I
get
was like, I think I'm on to something.
no kidding, right? And so how did you come up with the name the Man Funnel?
So that's a great story as well. Like, my first job out of college was a very cutthroat technology sales job, with which I had zero interest in. I just, I loved psychology. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. My brother's like, you're going to come work for my company. You can't keep working at Benetton. And I'm like, okay. And so I went to this job, and like, we had very scary. It was very scary. You had to, like, I was in New York City, and I got, like, we would get kicked out of the office in Midtown by like 9 o'clock. You couldn't even be in the office anymore. You had to canvas and knock on business doors like the whole day. It was so scary. And we had these morning meetings. It was like the boiler room. And then they threw down this notebook one day, and it had a funnel on it. And they were like, only 20% of your leads will close. Get on out there and come home with this whole thing filled out. And that was a really big aha moment for me, Madison, because I was like, wait, only 20% of my leads close. I've been spending so much time with, like, the business owners who were flirting with me, or, like, being friendly and, like,
Yeah.
playing around with my time, but they weren't actually intending on purchasing my IT T1s or anything. And, like, same thing happens with women. Like, we spend so much time grasping on the wrong prospects.
Yes.
And that is the huge divide between, that is one of the big divides between you and your forever partner. And so my friends would kind of maybe complain about a guy or something, and I would just be like, sounds really like you need to go fill your funnel. So this has been going on in my friend group, the Manfunnel thing, for like eons at this point.
That is amazing. So what did you learn, and what do you teach people when they become a member of the Man Funnel?
It's very important that you understand that it's not a numbers game at all, but the Man Funnel is a very metaphorical, like, way to approach this process, where keeps you in a mindset of abundance versus scarcity. And it just makes it really fun. But I do want to preface it that, like, your numbers are not going to work. They're not going to stick if you're not also doing the inner work. The step 1 of the Man Funnel essentially is date yourself. And that's really going within and going a lot deeper within yourself. Okay. So you can express that not only to men, but out there into the universe, to tap into the magic of the universe. Like, some of the logic of dating is what holds us back. And obviously so much of our mindset and our fears are standing in the way of that too.
Well, of course, absolutely. So when you say date yourself, it's like really getting to know yourself, nurturing yourself, knowing what you want. Because I think a lot of people, and I'm speaking from my experience and friends I've spoken to, is you don't have the hard conversations soon enough. And then you're afraid to have them because you're afraid you're going to lose that person. So the vulnerability becomes there. So you don't know how to express your needs because you're like, well, what if I push this person away? My whole theory is, because I work in the whole mindset area, is you can't mess up what's meant for you. So having the conversation is either going to save you a shit ton of time, or is gonna be the one, and you'll have clarity.
You're so right, Madison. And the earlier you have the difficult conversations, the better. But I do support my clients on when and how to have these conversations. Like effective communication is a huge part of my work, and it's the biggest missing link in all of our, challenges in our relationships, be it romantic or not. And so what you say is it's just so important. Problem with being in that scarcity mindset that I mentioned is like we just kind of go along with this thing and we're afraid to say the thing or have the conversation because we don't want to lose that thing, but it might not be our thing in the first place, and it's like pointless and you're just passing the time. Maybe it feels good and it feels like you have somebody, but you're fooling yourself, right? Like you have to share what your skeletons are. You've got to share what your desires are throughout the entire process, and that helps you simply determine who the right person is. So the problem with dating, but what I see is like we focus so much on one person, and I call it linear dating. People are out there and they get really excited, and once they have they get excited, they found a prospect that's interesting, okay? And we tend to get way too excited about a prospect, start harping on him and like hanging our hopes. I get this visual of like hanging our hopes on this like coat rack where we put like our umbrella and our hat and our coat, and we like on him on this coat rack of a man, but it's like it's not viable yet. So that is how we kind of our ego just fools ourselves into thinking we have something because we want it so badly. And it's really not based in reality. And there's a lot of things that our ego does and to protect us that really does blind us in the dating process. And that's why it's so important to go through this with maybe a group of people or a coach who can really see and help you prevent these minute mistakes, like a situationship. I was in one in Manhattan for like 5 effing years, Madison, like, hoping that it would change or trying to like, look for that glimmer of hope. And it wasn't like I wasn't dating anyone else, but I can tell you that hope and want and desire for that person all definitely took me off my course and slowed me down. From finding the one, especially the energetic leak of it all. I'm sure that you have friends or have, can relate to something like that. I think we all fall into these situationship traps.
Well, yeah, because I tell my girlfriends this all the time. I said, the longer you hold on to what is not for you, the more you delay what is for you. And I think what gave me the biggest peace of mind in my dating was you can't mess up something that's meant for you. So don't worry about having the conversations. Don't worry about expressing your needs. And when I did that, it kind of everything changed. Because I had this guy last year that I kind of really liked. And I liked him so much. I was afraid. And I was like, I don't want to feel this way. I don't know how to express my needs. And so I then was like, let's just rip the Band-Aid off. So my heart breaks over by the summer and I can have the best summer of my life. So I just sent an email. I sent a freaking email, a really nice email. I ran it through ChatGPT to make sure it was freaking golden. And I sent this freaking email and I'm like, I didn't even have the courage to just like sit him down and express this. And that's a regret I have, but I don't look back on that because if he was meant for me, he would have picked up the phone and said, we need to talk. Like but he let me go so easily and then was like, I'd like to talk to you. And then time got away and we never spoke again.
Oh,
but there was nothing bad that happened. It was just timing and, there was no fights or anything like that. So I thought about that for a very, very long time. And I think maybe a little bit that did keep me stuck. Because I was hoping to have that conversation. He'd reach out occasionally, like once in a while, but we never got together. And then when I finally was just like, you know what? I don't care. This is not my person. He would have come back. Then that's when somebody else popped in.
And it's interesting that you bring that up because I think on the topic of closure, that really holds us back. But the way I look at it is like their actions are your closure, right? He would have made that. And you know what? It's challenging to have that vulnerable conversation face to face. I think an email is fair. Although the more muscle you can grow toward having difficult conversations, just the better your relationships will be. And I think we're all on that journey of practicing to communicate better and having these deep, vulnerable, and dare I say, scary conversations face to face. It truly is, it can be very frightening, especially depending on what communication was like in your family. And so much of us we're conditioned to just not having these conversations, stonewalling, or when we did express ourselves, we weren't seen or heard or even allowed to express. And it affects so much of us in our adult relationships.
Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah. And it's amazing because I had somebody who like I casually dated before and then they came back. And it was one of those things where I was like, I kind of like the second chance a lot more because you bypass all like the small talk and all that crap. And then you're like, if we're gonna do this, like this is the last time. Like there's no going back after this. So like if we want to get this right, we have to be on the same page. And I've been able to really effectively communicate my needs and like what's not working, what I want. And this person is like, I need to get better at that. I'm going to get better at that. And it's like, okay. So it made me realize that like the right guy will do what you want
But
and
also
won't.
it is genius because so we are afraid to rock the boat. We're afraid to say these things, but in actuality, a man feels so much safer with a woman who expresses herself, and he starts to admire you. And almost like, I'm not saying, I don't think anyone being on a pedestal in a relationship is healthy, you
No.
know, but he does, you do float on the air a little bit more in his eyes. So it's counterintuitive because so much of us are afraid to say the things, and we just kind of like go with the flow in our relationships or with the tempo of how a man wants to move the relationship. That's how it ends up in a brick wall, by the way. But if we're not expressed, he actually, it doesn't work because he does not feel, it's not the environment of safety that he needs to unzip his heart. And Madison, only when two hearts are unzipped and in the presence of one another vulnerably is really when a forever bond can be born and foster.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, it's so funny. It's like relationships are something that so many people just struggle with when really it's so much in our heads and these
So,
illusions and these things and this comparison and this toxic advice that is being spewed, especially on TikTok.
oh
So I
yeah.
want to ask you about that because when I had opened TikTok today, it was like there's this woman, I forgot her name, but she always pops up and she's like, black cat, golden retriever, black cat, golden. I'm like, what? What is your thought on that whole analogy?
Well, the golden retriever being the one that comes toward you, like enlighten me a little bit more. I haven't looked into that in
It's
so long.
chasing. Yeah, it's like you're there, you're always happy no matter what. Like the golden retriever always wants to be with you. It's always the black cat is like, get the hell away from me. Like,
Well, it just depends really. Like that's like a really fun way to kind of dig into attachment styles, which is that
yeah.
hot word in dating. And it does matter. Now, social psychological studies prove that both parties, if we're talking hetero people right now, do not just prefer, but they really need a little bit of coyness in the preliminary stages. Okay.
Yeah.
So, every species has its mating games. And we value what we do wonder about or what we have to work for a tad. It's like the teen who gets the Range Rover at 16 versus the teen who had to work for 4 years to put his down payment on his Saturn or Subaru or something, right?
Yeah.
Like who can appreciate their car more in actuality? The teen who
Makes
worked
sense.
for it. So it's just a little bit of human nature. So I don't want us to like throw out the prospect that there is like a tad bit of just being aware of how your energy is coming forth. The golden retriever energy of the
Like pick me, pick me, pick me, pet me,
it's
pet
just
me. Yeah.
not that sexy, TBH. It's just really not. And so, like, some of that energy, right? And it's not really about a game or a strategy, it's more about being aware of your energy and what drives you, because the underlying force of your golden retriever, or that's pushing you forward, is the need for reassurance. Okay. So you're calling to check in because the underlying current of reassurance, like, how do you think that's going to land energetically on the receiver of said text or call?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. It's like that desperate energy. People can read it in jobs and relationship, everything.
Everything.
Sales, especially, you know.
Your electromagnetic field can be felt from, like, probably the other side of the world. I mean, they say that the coding scientists can measure this coding, and it's like within 50
Crazy.
feet of your body, right? And you have a lot of control over the energetic coding that you're projecting too. So there's actually so much you can do when you learn and practice energetic tools, which is like something I'm uber passionate about, that I'm supporting all my clients on. So it's not about a game. It's really about harnessing your personal power and understanding what really works, what tantalizes humans, and what puts humans off.
Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. So when you say I can teach women how to meet and marry their soulmate in under a year, is there some steps that you can share
Yes.
that the listeners can start taking advantage of today?
First, absolutely. But first, I want to preface that with, look, I do dangle the carrot that you can meet your man in a year, and you absolutely can, and I can show you how. But there's two things I want you to keep in mind. If you're coming from an emotionally or physically abusive relationship, for example, you might have like a more of a, a road of healing and personal development and communication and
Yeah.
deconditioning what your parents and community conditioned you to, that's been holding you back from love. Okay. So you might actually be better served by doing the work and utilizing dating as a free therapy process, and just a deepening your sense of self process before meeting your person, because this work is like a snowball. It just like continues to grow and get better, and you get a deeper sense of self and you become healthier. So ultimately you would meet a better person if you're sinking into the work more for more time. So
Yeah.
that's just a really important part. The second thing that I want to clarify is that urgency that makes you want to find your person so quickly. There's often this feeling that people call me because they're feeling anxious, or they can't even enjoy time alone in their apartment because they're just feeling so much angst about their life, and they have to get lost in a show to even feel grounded or good. One of the byproducts of this work is actually you lose attachment to attachment, and it just like feels really good. And then you may actually say, oh my gosh, I can meet someone whenever I want. I am actually really good at this. I'm magical and powerful, and I'm not in any rush to meet my man. So those are a couple of things that I want to say in advance of that. Now, if you've kind of done your inner work, a little bit you have self-awareness around how your family's affected you, or what went on in your own contribution to your divorce, for example, right? Because it takes two to tango. We cannot just point fingers. Like, there's always some sort of contribution into the breakup or of something in the relationship. So if you've kind of done that work, yes, meeting your man in a year is highly possible with. So for example, I had 4 therapists come through recently, and just like boom, 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 4 out of 4, like move forward with met their person. One's 56, met their person within a year. Australia, her man is like a smoke show. Like, so these women who are therapists, obviously they have probably a lot more awareness than your everyday person or your woman in finance. I work with a lot of women in finance. They're very math and analytically oriented. So to get them to tap into their magic, sometimes it's like, trying to steal candy from a child. Like, it's like they don't want to let go of the control. They love
Yes.
the numbers are super important. Like, people who like math love control. Okay. So those are some things that make my job a little more challenging. But here's how you can meet your man very quickly with the Manfunnel. I'm going to give you one tip to keep you moving along in your path. I want you to focus on Mr. Next and not Mr. Now. Okay. And that's really confusing to some, especially people who love to overcommit and want to laser focus on this one man. But if he's not on that exact journey of like what you want, and does he want that with you when you want it, he could be a complete waste of your time. And so when you're out there dating, I don't want you to just grasp on and get excited about the man who's in front of you. I want you to focus on the man who's in front of you when he's in front of you. But at all other times, I actually want you to continue looking for Mr. Next. Okay.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I've never heard anyone say that, and it hit. Like it's like you just put the nail on the head.
Women are overcommitting so quickly to people who do not have their best interest in mind. It's like when Josh first asked me, or was like assuming we were exclusive, and I said, "Oh, well, I'm not looking to be a girlfriend. I'm looking to be a wife." And I want to date somebody who's moving forward, with that same intent. Okay. And this was said gently, maybe not jestfully, but we were having the difficult conversations and just basically like, I'm not going to sit here and give you my exclusivity unless we're like intentionally moving forward. And he proposed 5 and 6 months. Like he knew that he would lose me if he wasn't intentional on moving forward, and I wasn't pressuring him. It had nothing to do with him per se. It was just like, I knew what I want. I also knew I could get it. Well, not 100%. I mean, I was still, I just believed in myself a little bit more than I didn't. And that puts things into perspective and triggers action.
Yeah. No, that's so true, because he knew. It's like you didn't put him on a pedestal and you didn't come off desperate, and that's I think what you're really honing in on with the Mr. Next is that you get rid of that desperate energy, that scarcity mindset, and you're going into the abundance because there's an abundance of men. I mean, I've been on a weird energy, not weird energy, it's a great energy, but like, when people say dating's a nightmare, and I'm like, not really. I've been attracting the most fabulous men. And you know what's happening to me now? I just had a dinner with a girlfriend last night. It was so funny. And she's telling me this horrible story of this nightmare of this guy she was dating. And I was like, oh my God. And then she's like, I just wish I could meet a nice guy. And I said, well, I've got some good news for you. I said, the good news is I've been meeting so many nice guys and I have dates lined up. But somebody recently asked me to be exclusive with them, and so I need to cancel those dates. So why don't I just send you in my place? I'll tell them, but they're nice guys.
I love it.
And she was like, what? I'm like, are you free on Tuesday? She goes, yeah. And I go, great. You're going to have a date. I'm going to text this guy and tell him exactly what it is. And he was like, I'm happy for you. Sure. Can you tell me more?
Love it. I love that you're to look at dating in that way and have fun with it and think outside of the box is a huge component of what's missing. Like people don't, if you are so focused on the goal, here's another tip I'll give to you all because I'm feeling friendly and generous.
I love it.
You are so focused on the goal and you are just hoping that next date that, Frank is the one. Okay. And you're just like, so it's grueling. And we've had our first cold day this week. So it's dark, it's cold, snowed in Connecticut and Jersey, I heard. So you don't want to get off the couch because it's just the high stakes are really high, number one. So it's scary and you're worried about how you're showing up because you're putting the date on a pedestal. And then you're putting the goal on the pedestal. Okay. Instead, just like, what can you learn for this person? Like, how can I promise myself to have fun? Or how about we meet at a place that's right across from my apartment where I love the salad. So I know if we're going to have a mocktail or cocktail at the bar, I'm going to get my favorite salad. I'm going to look forward to it. Like, how can you make it fun? Like my Manfunnel, like my husband was on the phone with someone from my Manfunnel yesterday and they're like working on an incredible business deal. Like, you don't know what your man funnel is going to bring. And if you're looking at it only in that way, you're gonna have a terrible time out there.
Yeah, no, and that's actually happened to me. I mean, maybe it's because I work in the whole mindset field,
Yeah.
um, to where it's kind of naturally happened more. But it's like I have literally been on dates with people. I'm not even kidding. And I realized like they weren't for me, but we ended up connecting on a different level and like wanted to like do business together, wanted to like look at deals together,
Yep.
like mentor. Like
Unique stuff. That's the magic of people and connecting. Like,
exactly. That's what I tell people. I was like, no date is a waste of time. You're going to realize you're closer to what you realize what you don't want, but you also could make a new friend. You could make a new business connection. You could meet your friend's husband, and life's all about giving, you
Mhm.
know? And that's a great way to put great karma back out into the universe. And so there's no wrong
Yeah,
in anything.
his cousin could be your forever person. I mean, you just never know if you know how to like, utilize that friend, that new connection in like a authentic and way and figure out what is the reason that the universe has brought us together here. There must be some reason. I'm not feeling the spark. And I'm super interested in ABC about you, and I've so enjoyed this. I truly would love to stay in touch and keep connecting if you're up for it. Then you have a happy hour with your other friends and say, hey, you know what? I'm having a happy hour with my friends uptown. Do you have any? You could come along, but if you happen to have a couple single friends, that would be awesome. If you could invite one or two, I've got my friends and I'll
Yeah.
introduce you to them. And that's really motivating. That is one way that I was able to facilitate keeping up connections with men that I was, in a sense, rejecting in a way, right? By helping them see that I was there to support them in finding their person. Just it wasn't me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important for women, especially to know that like just because one man doesn't want you has nothing to do with your value or your self-worth. You're just not their person. And you don't want to be somebody's person that's not your person.
Exactly. You just want to redirect and find your person. Because
Yeah.
what you said to your friend, the longer you're staying with the wrong person, the longer it's going to take for you to find your right person.
Well, yeah, I did that before. I remember I would always like somehow the same type of man would show up in a different body, right?
Oh yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
I like that was such a common theme in my life. So I would always get the just about to finalize the divorce, just got out of the divorce. You don't want to date these men. They just want to stick their dick in everything they can because they're like, I'm free. And they don't know what they want and they're so lost. And it's just not a good time. And I was like, why do I keep meeting men that like aren't ready? And then I realized I was like, well, like attracts like. So there's something in me that is also emotionally unavailable because if there wasn't, I wouldn't be attracting these people. So I
Mhm.
was like, I got to figure out what that was. Did the work, figured it out, got clear on it. And now every person I met after that, divorced for 7 years, never married, divorced for 10 years, and it was like they had been out on the sea. And I was like, and it happened like that.
Right? Isn't it
I
so
was like,
when
shit.
you get your realizations and you dissolve your own glass ceiling? I had a very similar experience. And the moment I made
Yeah.
the decision, that the something completely different started showing up. So you're so much more powerful than you realize. Those listening to this, you have so much more power to find your love. And just sometimes we can't get out of our own blind spots though, alone, and that's okay.
Well, I think people too, it's like, especially, there's obviously different cities are different, but like New York City, people in, there's a lot more women than men. With all the apps now too, it's like people aren't putting in the work and the one wrong thing happens and they run because they can swipe and there's a million other options out there. So I
Mhm.
think people naturally, if they really want that, they're like, well, I got to make this work. What if I mess this up? And it's like, you can't mess up what's meant for you. But I
Mhm.
remember I was doing that for a long time too. And that's why I was afraid to have those conversations. And now I'm just like, well, okay.
But I want to piggyback on what you're saying. Um, there is a lot of choice, and that is one of the issues with the apps, is that human brains do not do well with a lot of choice. So how do we
Yeah.
overcome this? There's a great way to overcome this. And that is just taking the step back to take a step forward and really deepening your process. You're already doing that, Madison, by having deeper conversations, not, staying superficial with the people we're meeting. It moves way too fast. You really want to figure out how you can have more effective and deep, more meaningful experiences, because that right there is going to be what makes you stand out amongst the sea of other women and make him remember you, have him really craving to have you in his energy field again.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And then so what do you think is a time, because I think this is the golden question, maybe there's no answer. When is it too soon just to sleep with somebody?
Everybody has their own love story, but you've got to really think about what works for you.
Yeah.
Human biology works against us in the dating process as women. Okay.
Explain more.
So if we are getting very cuddly, and even if we're having a hot makeout session, okay, well, remind me about the hot makeout session, because I have something important to tell you.
Okay.
Getting really cuddly and cozy early on, even if you're not having intercourse, but let's say you orgasm, your oxytocin is flooding you. And when that happens, you're losing a lot of your reasoning. Like,
yes,
80% of your frontal lobe. You're designed to do that. So you choose him, and toxic men know all about this. So they want to get you all caught up. Oh my God, holy shit. So I had this boyfriend, I was living in Miami at the time. Like, I left the city for a couple of years, and this boyfriend got me this massive bouquet he was totally love bombing me when we first met. Like, I'd never seen a bouquet this big. It had like birds of paradise and like all this
oh my
shit.
God.
And then he was like, smell the flowers. And I'm like, okay. And then like later he told me it's because like when you smell flowers, the oxytocin floods. And like he was so adamant about having me smell the flowers and like making me orgasm as soon as he could get his hands on me. Like when we were dating, like he knew, he was a doctor, and he knew that he was toxic. Like, he's a good person, but just
Yeah.
so toxic. He really so wanted a wife so bad. Like, it was like, obviously that was a flag, just the way he talked about it. When they're talking about that so early on, it's like, you want this wife so bad, but you can't get one, and you're this good looking, and like, what's not adding up here?
Yeah.
So they know, whether consciously, this obviously was very intentional, but like, consciously or unconsciously, toxic men know that they can get you in the nook and get you attached before they show you who they really are.
Yeah.
It's behoove you to take it slow. Like, if you're not a great dater, or like, let's say you haven't been able to secure that relationship that you want, I encourage clients to take it really slow, because it's like, if you're an experienced Formula One driver, you can go whatever 160 around the track and you probably won't die. Okay. But like, if I did it, and I'm not well, I'm pretty good go-karter, I'll tell you that. But like,
yeah, impressive.
But like, if I was I don't know how to drive a race car. But I have a much higher probability of crashing and burning. Okay. So that's my point. Like, why not take it slow? Like, if this is the right person, you can have sex with him for the rest of your life. Why do you have to like go that way right now? And the answer is, a lot of women they are washed away by the expectations in the dating process. They don't realize how much sharing your own desires, your own pace, and like what you want, and determining if that person's right for you before crossing that bridge to intimacy, it helps you in your dating process. They're so countless people that I work with are just so that pressure of just like what the guy wants, put so much just natural pressure that they put on themselves. Like, what about that? Can you comment on that?
About like the pressure of just
like,
yeah.
That pressuring, feeling that pressure, and like sometimes succumbing to it. I don't even mean just like to sleep.
Oh,
just like the pace of things, or communicating with him when you're not like in the mood, or whatever it might be. I'm just curious your experience.
well, my experience in previously when I was attracting like the wrong people, I would sometimes run away if I was like, I don't know how to express that I'm not ready. Like I didn't know how to properly say I want to wait. Like I didn't know how to communicate that. And then I'm like, okay, if you don't sleep with somebody or hook up with somebody by a certain time, then they're just going to move on and go away. And so when I was operating from a scarcity mindset, desperation mindset, I was scared to have those conversations. But then when you step into your power and you're like, okay, if this person's the right one, now what I tell my own friends and what I did too was like I'm really attracted to you. I really like you, but I want to make sure like this has potential to potentially last, and I don't want to ruin it because we jump into it too soon. If a person just wanted to bang you in the first place, they're gone. And you just did
Totally.
yourself a huge favor, and you don't have that damn oxytocin release.
1,000%. Because once they get a little piece of the real estate of our hearts, like we don't, that stays there. That energy is stuck in the damn heart. It could be years, like
I
it could be
know.
forever. So that's why I urge you all listeners to really think about who you're letting in your heart and your, and your vag, because this is all, it like affects us so much more than them. Like I had a friend who was feeling like, oh, I waited too long, so of course he left. And like, I just don't think,
Oh,
I don't think a good man, the kind of man that you want to actually invest your time and heart in, is going to do that. I think he is going to be happy to continue taking the time to get to know you if he's a high quality, like a healthy masculine man.
oh, 100%. Yeah, it's exactly right. And yeah, it's that oxytocin. I mean, I have girlfriends that claim like, oh, I don't get attached when I have sex, but I'm like, well, you do because you're human, you were created by God, and we are created that way because evolution was sex was created to procreate, and that needed to be the provider and the caregiver for your child. So you can't get around human biology
Yeah,
and like
otherwise
just the
they're
way it
probably
is.
they're denying their truth or their inner feelings. Like I think you can, like if you, for me, for example, I'm a very experienced man funneler, so I have a ton of control over my mindset. Like if I was out there
Yeah.
again and I wanted to sleep with somebody, like I probably would, right? But it just depends on the situation. But I'm also like the guidelines that I give in my course with my clients. I give a ton. I actually give rules and guidelines, and they offer you quick wins. You start to have a lot of success right away in dating because of them. But they're also made to be broken. Like I want you, when you become like that fully actualized version of yourself, that awesomely skilled dater where you're just not taking things personally. He can feel that power and you can almost do whatever you want, but you do have to know yourself. And also, like, do you really need another energetic tie sexually? Do you need like another HPV strand? I mean, you just need to think about like what's best for you. You really, like, I've had so many people who held off for just even one more date and decreased the statistical percentage of like how many false start relationships they had just by waiting one more date, because that next date they found out that he wasn't the right one or he did something and they were like, holy shit, I almost slept with him last date. Yeah, I've heard this so many times.
Yeah, it's true. It's not even sleeping. I think it's like any, like just hooking up. Cause like once you go there, then the urge becomes, but let's talk about the love bombing real quick. Cause you had mentioned that a couple times. This is a very toxic thing. And I've actually had guy friends admit that they do this. And I'm like, you realize it's a manipulation tactic. I would work on that and I would not admit that publicly. Like why do you think people do that?
Okay, well, going back to what we were saying before is like they're afraid that they're not lovable and they want to get you attached. So that's like the main reason why toxic people will do it. They want to like depends how toxic. Some really toxic or highly narcissistic person will, you know,
Yeah.
they know they want you right away for their supply. They want all of you. They want to control you. They want you excited about them. Um, and that's like on the higher level of toxicity. But what I want you to know is I also coach men. And what I found as a pattern is that it stems back from teenage years of that insecurity. And again, like wanting to move things forward and like getting that reassurance from a woman very fast. So they are noticing now through our work of being way more intentional, being so much more grounded when they're separated, not just going out there and breaking like 100 hearts, because it's also like an energetic leak for them. They have to have, like, I help them understand that if they're rushing in, they also have to then have that uncomfortable period with that person where it's awkward, where you don't realize you want them anymore, or and you're not, are you going to call them, or are you just going to ghost them? And like, these men who have a lot more awareness through the process of doing this inner work slow things down considerably. So to answer your question, there can a lot of good guys out there that are rushing and doing this thing because they don't know what they want. They don't have an intentional dating process. They lack awareness. And this is like most men out there right now in the dating process. And so like what I love about what you said, Madison, about whomever you were referring to, you were saying like, here's how I want to do it. Like, let's having these difficult conversations. You can actually inspire men to be better. I mean, it's not your job to be a man's therapist, but we as the feminine energy partner, so much of how we behave and communicate sets the tone for him. And when he sees you know what you want and you know how to communicate it, and you're that sturdy within your own desires, right? That inspires him to want to be a better man. And we've all heard this, like, not just on movies and in like real life, like, she makes me want to be a better man. Well, how do we do that? It's first starts with you and deeply connecting and expressing.
Yeah, that's so well said. I feel like we're going to have you back because there's just so much more to uncover with this topic. But where can people find you, hire you, all that good stuff?
Sure. Well, if you search the Manfunnel, it's one word. And you can find me in many publications, including, the New York Times and all that. But the Manfunnel Instagram is where I'm available. You can pop over there and grab my 7 scripts for tricky dating situations for free and get started on your effective communication. Through those scripts, you'll start to understand the art of standing up for your desires and how powerful it is in the dating process. I'm extremely passionate about the written word, and we're all messaging. Messaging is a huge part of dating right now. Even if you have ChatGPT, it's still important to put your own human touch and your emotional touch within and know exactly what is going to work for you and how to express it in a way that lands warmly and well on the other side.
Yeah. Well said. No, it's very, very well said. Well, thank you so much for being here. Like, this was amazing. You're definitely going to come back on the show. Would love you. Yeah. So if you guys need help in dating, check out the Manfunnel, both guys and girls. Or if you have a friend who you just can't stand to hear them complain one more effing time about the same freaking situation with the advice that goes in one ear and out the freaking other, call the Manfunnel, because they need the help and you need your sanity. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Megan. And thank you to everyone who's listening, wherever you may be. We will see you next time to find out who's next.
Hey, your host here, Madison Malloy. Please make sure to subscribe to the show on all podcast platforms, and please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. Also, if you have any questions or comments, you can email us at contact@nexttomadison.com. I thank you again for listening. Bye.